Okay, hi. I'm Bobby Jacobs from VCU. I'm going to talk about crossword puzzles. And so, crossword puzzle, it's a very fun puzzle. It uses a grid of black and white squares, like this picture here. So the most crossword puzzles have three different rules. The grid is symmetrical. That means it has 180 degree symmetry. It's the same upside down. The grid's connected. What that means is that every two white squares are connected. There's a path from any white square to any other white square that only uses white squares, and it goes horizontally and vertically. And finally, every word has to have at least three letters. The words are basically any set of consecutive white squares in a row or column. Okay. And they have to have at least three letters, usually. So one question you might wonder is what's the most words you can fit in a 15 by 15 crossword? The standard size for crossword is 15 by 15. And it turns out that the most words in a 15 by 15 crossword puzzle following those three rules is 96. And it turns out there's two different, essentially different crossword grids that are 15 by 15 with 96 words. Okay. So it's these grids, and also their rotations and reflections, and there's a few white squares here you can turn to black without affecting the number of words, but like these are essentially the two grids that have 96 words. Okay. So I first wondered this question about the most words in a crossword in 2005, and I discovered this 96 word crossword in 2005. And then later in 2014, a professor in Pennsylvania named Kevin Furland, he discovered those crosswords and he did a paper about it. It was called Record Crossword Puzzle. So these links, this is his papers about the most words in a crossword is 96. Okay. And so when I found out about his papers, I decided to go visit him. This was about 2 years ago, in the days when you could actually have in-person meetings. I went to go to Pennsylvania to meet Professor Furland and do crosswords with him. And so one type of crossword that I really like, it's called a coded crossword. And in a coded crossword, each letter of the alphabet's a different number from 1 to 26. And you have to figure out what number is what letter. Yeah, okay. I really like those coded crosswords. They're very fun. So I made a coded crossword here. And it's using one of those grids that has 96 words. This is a very fun puzzle I created. Okay, here's the answer to the crossword. Okay, so another thing that I made using this crossword grid is I made a crossword cake. So I actually once saw this video of people making cakes in the shape of different objects. And so I decided I was gonna make a crossword cake, and I used this crossword that had 96 words to make that cake. It was very delicious. And so how I first started getting interested in these coded crosswords is because a puzzle company called Penny Press, and they make a lot of puzzle magazines and they make coded crosswords. That's how I first started liking these puzzles. And another trip that I made, I've actually been and visited Penny Press. and done crosswords with now. Okay, so do you have any questions now?
How long did it take you to come up with the example of the coded crossword with 96?
Probably a few hours, I think.
That's cool. I've never heard of a coded crossword puzzle before. That's cool.
They're very fun. Okay.
How did you know that 96 was the upper limit? Could there not be an example where it's all just completely white squares, for example?
Okay, well that would have, okay, so if it's 15 by 15 and it only uses white squares, so that means that in every row and column there's only one word, because it would be like white squares all the way across. And so then there would be 15 plus 15, there would only be 30 words there. Yeah.
So you're right. Yes. No, thank you for that. Yes.
So I basically did a lot of different possible cases, like to see the best you can do for 15 by 15. If each word is at least 3 letters, you can do 4 3-letter words in the same row, separated by 1 black square between each word. And so that's actually is 4 times 3 is 12, and there's 3 extra black squares in between the words, that's 15. And so the most words you can do in a row or column is 4. And so like the way to do it, to figure this out, is to find like which rows and columns have those 4 words in them, and try to maximize those. Okay.
Have you, or do you know of anyone else that has played around with like different sizes of crossword boards, like instead of 15 by 15, scaling it up to like N by N or something?
Okay, yeah, so there's actually another paper that actually does generalize this result, and there's also there's a sequence in the Online Encyclopedia of Integer Sequences, OEIS. It's A243826, and it is actually the most words you can have in an n by n crossword. It's a very fun sequence. Okay.
So I guess there must be some configurations that are possible in terms of white squares and black squares, but then you're limited by like what's possible in the English language to actually have like, because if you had like, for example, all white squares, you probably couldn't find like words with 15 letters that all can fit in a grid like that.
Yeah, so I think that all of these, since like the crosswords that have the most words, they use a lot of 3-letter words, and so there are definitely lots of solutions for each of these, and it's easy to come up with. If you're given one of these grids with a lot of small words, it's easy to come up with a crossword with that grid. Okay.
Following up on that a little bit, you said that they use a lot of 3-letter words, but I was surprised to see that there are some fairly long words in these maximal crosswords. Have you or somebody else thought about like crosswords with the smallest, largest word? Is it possible to make everything with 3 and 4 letters, 3, 4, and 5?
Oh, let me think. So in this grid here, so this one does have a few 7-letter words in it. Like for example, like in the 6th row in the middle of the 6th row, there's a 7-letter word, and then like in the middle of the 10th row, there's a 7-letter word. But I think there might be a few grids like you can do. Like you could probably do some with only 3 and 4-letter words, but I think that like these grids, the way that like the maximum number of words is, they might have a few words, but I think that some maximal crossword grids, they only use like 3, 4, and 5-letter words. If you go to that OEIS sequence, it will have like, it does have some, like for some sizes of grids, you can actually have both the maximal number of words and like only small without any longer words. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, since we haven't yet, let's thank our speaker. Thanks, Bobby. That was really cool.
I was going to ask a really quick follow-up question, if I may. Do you know the longest word that you can fit into a maximal crossword puzzle?
Okay, so in like, okay, so I think that some of the grids in that OEIS file, I think like it might either be like 9 by 9 or 11 by 11. There actually is one of the words that actually goes all the way across. So there might be like an 11-letter word in the maximal 11 by 11.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the link. Here's the OEIS number for the sequence in OEIS. And so in case you're curious, that it's A243826. Okay.
Great. Well, let's thank Bobby one more time.